BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Well, get $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week. Your chance to win weekly prizes and a share of $200K. Now, when the game's over, you can head over to the online casino. Get in the games of blackjack, poker, unwind with one of the 150 slot games they have. Head to the website today. Get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Welcome to another edition of Bleav in Giants. Bob Papa, 2-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, as the Giants will be in Cleveland to take on the Browns this weekend. And Carl, a little homecoming for you. You spent some time with the Cleveland Browns after leaving the Giants. I won't talk about the one pit stop that you had. Let's talk a little bit more about your memories of the dog pound, you, Pepper, Bill Belichick. You guys had a really good team. I mean, people forget that the Cleveland Browns under Bill Belichick went to Foxborough and beat the Patriots in a playoff game. It was coached by Bill Parcells, by the way. Mm-hmm. You guys had a really nice team there in Cleveland before Art Modell decided to move them.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because the people of Cleveland, they just love football. They live and die every win, every loss with the team, and just such a passionate town. It was just a great town to play in. And then I had some great teammates. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Eric Metcalf yesterday. I'm probably going to see him while I'm in town, but it was just a good group, man. And, the Cleveland Browns, prior to Belichick being there, they had some really good teams, as you know, with Ernest Biner and Mack and all of those guys, and Ozzie Newsome under Marty Schottenheimer. And then they hit some hard times, and then Belichick came in and got it going in the right direction. And then, Art pulled the plug and away they went to Baltimore. And the fans of Cleveland were basically in the NFL desert until the NFL was able to get another team in there.
All right, so you're going back to your old stomping grounds, although not the old stadium. It's a new, shiny stadium, but still down by the water, and it still gets its share of wind. I mean, listen, we're lucky that the Giants are playing there in the third week of the season, because going there in December is just not a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's no fun. None.
All right, let's talk about this game. The Browns come in with a record of 1-1. They got a win last week in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. Giants 0-2. We talked about the loss against Washington and all the things that the Giants had to do to lose that football game. Yeah. When you're 3 for 3 in the red zone and you hold the other team to 0 for 6 in the red zone, you really should win the football game. They didn't. We talked about all the reasons why. Yeah. Why do you think this week could be different for the Giants as you take a look at this matchup?
Well, it could be different, and it may not. I have a strong suspicion that they are going to pay more attention to detail, Bob, because, as we've turned the page on the Washington game, the things that could come back to haunt them need to be put behind them as well. And that's, being able to get off the field on third down. There was, several, even in that prolonged first drive that the Giants stayed on the field, they were, committing penalties on third down. They were creating these third and big deficits and just couldn't get off because of something they did. So it's got to be attention to detail. Again, this is a fight in their weight class. They've got to prove that they can compete in this one, but it just comes down to execution. It really does. I mean, there are so many theories now because fans are rightfully frustrated, but they question coaching. They question whether you have enough talent. They question, all of these things. Well, why did we bring in this guy? Because he doesn't have any sacks so far. They are beyond the splash and flash of some of your players that you had high hopes for. the game against Washington, many of those players were very active and disruptive in many ways. Um, they just have to keep going and keep building, but just working on the little things. But, you know, the state of where the fan base is now, it's just total frustration. And just looking for solutions and questioning everything, right? They have players that are good enough on the Giants roster. They have good players, especially facing a team like Washington and a team like Cleveland. Their players are good enough. They just got to execute.
Look, Cleveland's got a good defense. I mean, that's well stated. Even in the 33 points that the Cowboys scored in week 1, there were some turnovers. There was a punt return for a touchdown. It's not like the defense got gashed by Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dallas went in there and whipped them. Last week in Jacksonville, when they got their win, again, a low-scoring game. Myles Garrett is, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. They got Denzel Ward. They got really good players on all 3 levels.
Yep.
Last week, the Giants were able to move the football against Washington pretty much at will. I mean, they had 1 3-and-out, 1 bad series, but other than that, if Singletary doesn't fumble and if Nabers doesn't drop the 4th and 1, is there any doubt that the Giants are scoring on both of those drives too? Now, it's going to be a lot tougher. And look, the offense is going to have a couple rough spots in this game. There's going to be some 3-and-outs. There's going to be some punting because the Browns don't allow a lot. But I think one of the keys, I mean, it's always a key, right? But don't turn the ball over and give them a short field because they got their own offensive issues. And they don't have Nick Chubb, who's still out coming off that knee injury from last year. The Giants have to do a better job against the run. And they can't give short fields because Deshaun Watson, despite the fact that he's won a bunch of games since he's been in Cleveland, does not play to the same level he played it in Houston. And the Giants have to wreak some havoc in this game somehow, some way, however they can do it, because I think they got a really good chance to win this game.
They do. And the thing with Deshaun Watson, he's a rhythm quarterback, a rhythm passer. And, when he's going, everything kind of revolves around him. Right now, he's just the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And because, they've had their issues on the offensive line, they've even gone to like 6 offensive linemen to try to give him added protection. So their offense is not as rhythmic as, a Deshaun Watson-led offense would be. You've got to keep it that way. Now, what they'll do, they're going to do just like every other team in the league right now. They're dumping down stuff and trying to get, stay ahead of the chain. So these check down passes, these short passes are basically run plays for these offenses just to keep your offense ahead on the chains. And I know there's some frustration with the depth of defensive backs. And people are like, well, the corners are playing 8 yards off. What is their normal depth? 7.5? It's just that if you press everything at the line of scrimmage, they're going to throw the ball over the top. So the misnomer with a bend but don't break defense is not to surrender, things until you get to the red zone. It's you're playing good defense, but you're legislating against deep plays. And you want to come up and you have to be good tacklers. That's what you have to be when you play that style defense. The Giants are not built for man coverage all over the field. They don't have the experience and probably don't have the talent at every position in that defensive backfield to go man-to-man. So you play to minimize deep shots or big plays, and you just have to be a good tackling defense, and you pressure the quarterback. That's what it really comes down to, because when people hear bend but don't break and just can't define it other than the fact that the Giants gave up a whole bunch of yards, so it's not working, right? The scheme is flawed because they gave up too many yards. Well, those yards got the way they got because of poor tackling. But if the defense works the way it should, they're just going to minimize deep plays, and they just have to come up, make tackles, get off the field.
Yeah, and they got to be smart, right? So Amari Cooper, who's been a fantastic player in his career, he's got back-to-back games of less than 20 yards receiving per game.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't done that since his last 2 games as a Raider before he got traded to the Cowboys. Like, don't let them get in. Don't let him hit, a 25-yarder early to Amari Cooper. Like, keep the doubt within them, right?
Sure.
Because they're like, how do we get Amari Cooper going? How do we get him going?
Yeah.
We got Jerry G. How do we get Amari Cooper going? Now they got Jack Conklin is back practicing. He's the right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if Willis is going to play. He's been limited in practice. But don't let them get right on you, I guess is the thing the way to put it.
Again, I want to just go back one more time on this defensive philosophy of legislating against deeper balls. The reason you do that is because the numbers, offenses in the league are not really built for sustained drives, right? Unless they have big plays within those long drives. So you're counting on offenses making mistakes, giving you turnover opportunities, committing offenses. And that's, essentially what Washington did as they were driving the football down the field. They get to a certain point and there's an offsides penalty that negates something that they do. So it's also kind of a chess game when you have to strategically play to your strengths. And you have to just legislate against the things that can hurt your team.
Right. And look, they got 2 stops last week and they committed penalties. Now, they were questionable calls, but they were penalties nonetheless. But, I think one of the things that the Giants are going to have to do in this game is just be a little tighter on all that stuff. Now, Watson can run, but not on the same kind of level that Jaden Daniels can run. And the Giants are going to have to be smart with that, too, because he will look to take off with his legs and use them. Like, if you have him in a 3rd and long, Watson's not adverse to trying to get out there and make something happen with his legs. And the Giants just have to be better at all that stuff than they were last week.
Yeah, listen, Watson's had his share of injuries. I'm sure he's not going to be reckless running the football, but yes, he is very resourceful. But again, just get the guys to the ground. And Deshaun Watson's not an easy guy to tackle either. I mean, I looked at them against Dallas. He was shaking off, pass rushers as well as linebackers. So they've got to make sure they wrap him up and get him to the ground. But it's pretty simple. They're going to have to protect the quarterback. Myles Garrett can legitimately wreck your game. He can wreck your offense by himself. So they've got to make sure he has the right amount of attention, keep the offense on track, and run. You got to try to run the football too. You've got to try to stay on track because deep passes or deep drops normally favors that guy who can wreck your offense, Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and Singletary did a nice job last week outside of the fumble. I mean, he had, what did he finish with? 95 yards rushing.
Sure.
I want to ask you about Malik Nabers. All right. So here's where it gets interesting. He led the Giants in receiving in week 1 in that loss. Last week, he was targeted 18 times or whatever it was. He had 10 catches, went over, 100 yards in the game. Obviously, Jim Schwartz is a good defensive coordinator, and they got way better corners in Cleveland than they have in Washington. No disrespect to Washington. Be interesting to see how Malik Nabers deals with it and how the Giants try to attack. But, Carl, it creates opportunities for other guys.
Yes. That's kind of the bait or the bait that they laid out there for every team moving forward is, hey, we've got to give this Nabers kid a lot of attention because, he's the one that they're going to. Well, you can do that, but the Giants have 3 other wide receivers that can equally hurt you. You see Wan'Dale Robinson got big plays in the game. Slayton had some big plays in the game. And listen, Jalen Hyatt is going to factor in this season. He will be the guy that can really discourage a defense because when they're giving all their attention to these guys, he's probably going to draw the lesser of their talent at defensive back, and he'll be able to hit some big shots with him.
Yeah, I mean, Hyatt's been quiet so far this season. He hasn't gotten a ton of snaps, but I think he's going to get some opportunities in this game to make plays. And then the other thing is, make sure you catch the football, right? You can't let the opportunity slip through your fingertips. The Giants have had too many drops so far in this early in this season that they can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. But I'm fired up for Nabers. The last time the Giants played in Cleveland, 2016, they beat the Browns. How'd they beat the Browns? Odell Beckham Jr. Had 2 touchdowns and he had 96 yards receiving. You got to influence the game, right? Eli's like, all right, I'm throwing it to Odell, and until you can stop him, good luck.
Yeah.
I think it was 6 catches for 96, 2 touchdowns. And Nabers is going to have that same kind of effect on this football team.
Sure, and your best players have to play good. That's going to be the theme going forward for the rest of the year. Best players be best players. Role players be the attention to detail guys. That's really what it comes down to. Know your assignments, but execute because you have good talent that can work in your favor if you just pay attention to detail. That means catching the football when they throw it to you, making sure that your coverage depth and understanding the other team's personnel and what they can do. It's just that simple.
I'm interested to see Daniel Jones in this game, and I'll tell you why. I mean, last week protection was great. Other than the 1 3-and-out series, he made right decisions. He put the ball where it needed to be. He threw 2 touchdown passes in the game. I'm interested to see how he deals with the pressure because although the Giants' offensive line, they're getting more reps together and they're clearly better than they were last year with this new configuration. But we know in this game, he's going to get hit. There's going to be pressure. And there's going to be times where he's going to have to throw the football away. I'm curious to see. I'm fascinated to see how he deals with adversity that Cleveland's defense is going to give him because, last week was pretty smooth sailing.
Sure.
Against that Washington defense. And I want to see after, what he went through in week 1 where he got some pressure and, his internal clock was completely sped up. It slowed down completely last week. And he's, just like we saw with Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles, just like we saw with Kirk Cousins coming off his Achilles injury, it was spotty in week 1.
Sure.
And then it started to get better. And I think the same could be said for Jones coming off his injury, not having to play. But I really want to see smart quarterback play because there's going to be some times where you're going to just have to punt because they're going to play good defense.
They are. And it also has to be smart play calling, too. I mean, I don't think Daniel Jones is just going to sit back in the pocket. I think they're going to move the pocket a little bit away from Garrett. I think there are going to be some short drops in there. So, I think they'll have a plan for, trying to at least minimize the impact that Myles Garrett can have on you. And that's going to mean you've got to take some short drops. That's going to mean you've got to move your quarterback in the pocket a little bit or move the pocket a little bit on some rollouts. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, the quarterback has to make good decisions with the football. Good decisions don't necessarily mean completions. A good decision could mean throwing the ball away instead of putting it in harm's way, and living to fight another day.
Yeah, it's like you read my mind right there because I was saying to myself, I don't really care too much about the completion percentage in this game. I care about the decision-making and not turning it over. Like when you're under pressure, if it's 3rd and 8, and don't put the ball in harm's way. If you got to throw it away and punt, but don't don't create turnovers for the other
Yeah.
team. Because they have, listen, as good as their defense is, and I got all these kind of crazy numbers, right? Like since the start of 2013, they only give up 15 points a game at home. They only give up 220 yards of offense at home. They only give up 138 yards passing. And, they have the highest percentage of 3-and-outs since the start of 2023. 52% of their opponent's drives result in 3-and-outs. I'm not worried as much about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to see the preseason panic throw that we saw against, Houston, like that kind of stuff. Just throw it away, throw it out of bounds, throw it to the bench, punt, and regroup. Because listen, I think the first team to 20 in this game probably gets the win.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's pretty much the trend right now anyway in the league. It's been low scoring thus far, but you're playing a team that doesn't allow a lot of points. So get what you can and stop them from getting their points. Simple.
Starter. I want to ask you a little bit about starter here for a second, because you got the 100-year thing. That's been going great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, when the team's not doing well, everything gets a little muted. But, it's not just Giants. Like, you do stuff in a lot of different platforms.
Yes.
What are some of the cool things that you got coming up here with starter?
Well, we've got a big program with the Raiders, the Rams. We do have a program with the Raiders. We've, most of these teams that have been traditionally strong teams with the brand continues to be strong. Like the brand is having a lot of fun, but we've got even, with the Jets, we've got some really cool programs that they're rolling out too. So it's just not the Giants that we're doing this with. It's all over the league. We've got some really cool stuff. Chargers.
You got anything with the Browns?
Of course. Of course.
Because I think about the Giants and the Browns, and I think of Jim Brown. I think of the 50s. I think of these, because they're in the AFC now. And I think of like some of the cool logo stuff that the Browns have had over the years.
The Brownie.
I'm thinking of starter reimagining some of that stuff.
We've got archives now. There's plenty. There's even when I was there are some pieces that the coaches wore that were starter that we haven't reintroduced yet. So we've got a lot of good stuff cooking.
All right. Anything else you got on this game on Sunday?
Nope. Attention to details. Good players. Be good. Role players. Be good as well. But just make sure you have attention to detail.
And it's a very winnable game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, most pundits had this one as a loss. Oh, you got to go to Cleveland. You got to play the Browns. They got a great defense at home. Blah, 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 blah. They're 1-1, and they're barely 1-1, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, kudos to them. They are 1-1. They found a way to win the game in Jacksonville. But it's not as if they looked like the Kansas City Chiefs or, one of these dominant teams.
Right.
It's a gettable game. And I think from a Giants standpoint, they need one under their belt. They need that taste of victory because you got a short week and you're taking on a Cowboys team that's going to be coming off a very tough game in their own right against the Baltimore Ravens. So listen, I think you're 100% right. Pay attention to detail because it's gettable. This is a gettable game.
You're punching in your weight class. Just do the little things.
All right, how would we like to wrap it up?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah, next week.
Bleav in Giants. Oh.
Bleav in Giants. No, I was going to say next week, because of the short week, we'll do a combo wrap preview. Okay. We'll only get one out there because it makes no sense by the time the game is over and everything. But yeah, tell a friend to tell a friend, Carl.
Bleav in Giants.
Bleav in Giants.